Everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we have a very good prop for you guys called maximum number of vowels in a substring of a given length, right? So this is a very good one, right? So let's pay close attention to the prompt statement, right? So he says given a string s, right, and an integer k, return the maximum number of vowels in a substring of s with length k. Okay, so vowel letters in English are a, e, I, o, u, right? So very simple, right? So given the string s and this integer k, right, and our job's to return, right? Find a substring of a particular length, right? So of k, right, that has the maximum number of vowels in it, right? So that's exactly what you're saying, right? So just recapping for you guys, right? So this input one, right? We have A, B, C, three I's, right, and D, E, F, right, and of length three, right? So the explanation here, right? We have three I's, which is the substring, right, of of three, right? That has pretty much three vowels in there, right? So it's equal to exactly that, right? Which makes it, pretty straightforward, right? She's yes, three, so we return three, right? That's the we can't have more than that, right? So that's it has, all the uh vowels, right? In there. Okay, that's good. So this one, find they're saying find the substring inside of this, right? That has find the substring of this of live two, right? That has the maximum number of vowels in there. So let's see, the maximum one is happens to have so it's left two, right? So any substring. So this is one. It has two. All right, this is another one. That's two. Pretty much any substring of left two contains two vowels. So we're pretty much set, right? Yeah. So we could find substring. So you might be tempted to say, oh, since they whatever k is, just return k as the answer, right? But don't be tempted to do that, right? So because right, it may not be the case always, guys, right? We may have substrings that there are like non-vowels in between them, right? And but they can help to form the longest possible substring of a particular k given, right? All right, so which one can I do real quick that I can show you, right? So let's say I wanted to find the maximum, for example, right, say for this one, right? So let's remove those test cases, right? So let's say I wanted to find the maximum, find the substring of length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Of length 5 that has the maximum number of vowels, right? So you can see so the maximum number of vowels, right, would be 4, right? Because even though D's in between it, right? When we connect those two things, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, D's in the middle, it's all right, and then E, right? This substring is of length 5, but it has 4, and that's the maximum that I can form, right? So to even test it out our theory, right? Let's say we put 5 there and then return, just hardcoding it for now, right? Return on 4, right? I think that should do it. See, that's the answer, guys, right? So yeah, I don't see anything that forms because either way, any way you look at it, right, you can form any other substring of like 5, right? So that's kind of the whole gist, right? So I'll go ahead and solve this, guys, right, in a dynamic fashion, right? It's kind of what we need to do. um okay, so what we can do, right, normally for this kind of problems, right, straightforward brute force can do the trick, right? And then we come up with a better solution by being a little bit more clever and things like that, right? So for example, right, we have for this, right, we can generate every possible substring of length 3, right? And for each of those substrings, right, I'm saying calculate the number of vowels within them, right? So once we are able to get that, we can capture it. So for every substring we go through, see how many vowels you have, right? For example, we calculate the first three substring, right? There's only one vowel. Okay, we calculate this again. How many vowels? One. Okay, cool. And then we calculate this. Oh, two vowels. Cool. How many? This. Three. That's how we keep doing over and over, right? So we can see it's not very efficient, right? The for loop, not very clever. And that's when we start introducing the concept of sliding window, right? Since we want a particular length for this particular problem, right? But normally, more specifically, is the the static window, right? Whether we have a fixed size window, right? You know, it's not the dynamic one where we don't have a particular substring length, right? It could be as big or as small as we want it, right? So it's a little bit more, it's a little bit different. Okay, so that's how this one is a more fixed one. It's a fixed size of size k, right? And that allows us to even makes the problem even like so much easier, right? You know, so how is this going to be helpful here, right? You know, so this is very similar to other problems we've done on this channel where it utilizes the same technique. I think a lot of those problems pretty much they use pretty much the same code, the same thing as, right? That's how similar they are. So once you've done many of those problems, you start seeing those kind of patterns, right, as you do them, right? And right, so how to go ahead and do that, right? So what I'm thinking is to just slide our window, right? You know, all right. So slide our window and keep it up of size k, right? So what we're gonna do, so one thing you might be thinking, how do we know how many vowels we have in our particular window, right? What we're gonna do for those kind of thing, right? We introduce another variable that's called num. So for this one, right, it would be whatever thing we're trying to count, right, in our particular window. So for example, this one is the number of vowels, right? So we would capture, so we keep a track of, you know, as we're expanding our window, right? We're going to keep track. All right, is this character that we're going to add to our window, is it a vowel? If it is, then we increment the number of vowels that we have in our thing, right? But if we're in our window, right? If it's not, then we just keep going. We just expand, right? Keep expanding. And as when it's time to shrink, right? Because that's how the sign window is, right? We expand with the right pointer and we shrink with the left pointer, right? You know. So the left pointer, if we're gonna about to shrink, right? If it's a vowel, then we decrement the number of vowels that we have in our current window, right? And it's by doing those two things, right? By when we're adding, if it's a vowel, we increment by shrinking or removing, right? We decrement. That's how we're going to keep track. We are always going to at whatever given time how many number of vowels that we have in our current window, right? And then that's how we're going to compare that every time to our max number of vowels, right? That we have, right? And that's going to allow us to solve this problem, right? So we will quickly, right? Do like a quick walkthrough. I think it'll make a lot of sense to you guys once we get into it real quick, right? You know, so this is the given thing that we're given now, ABC, 3 odds, right? So how would it work? The substring of how would it work, right? Okay. So how do we say we're gonna have a left and a right pointer, right? Okay. So the left will be here. Let me zoom in. You guys can see it. And so and the right will be here as well, right? You know, so and I said that we're gonna have this number of vowels, right? Which is 0 initially, because you know we're at the beginning, right? And our max, pretty much this is gonna be the thing that we're gonna be returning, right? Because we're gonna capture and all the different substrings that we're gonna see, right? We want the maximum like the one that at whatever point was the maximum, pretty much that's what I'm trying to say, right? So we have a left and right pointer, right? Pointing to much this. All right, it's making it simple for you guys so you guys can visualize it. All right. So we have a left and right pointer. So initially it's A, right? We had A. Is it a vowel? Yes, it is a vowel. Then we increment the number of vowels in our current window, right? But we don't update our max yet because we don't have a window of size K yet, right? Okay. So we increment again, right? We check is B K is equal to 3 for this particular case, right? So is B a vowel? No, it's not a vowel. Then we keep incrementing, right? We don't do anything. Is C a vowel? No, it's not, right? But now we about to, you know, we have a size K, right? So because we have size K, then we need to say, cool, for that particular window, is it greater than the max so far, right? You know, the max so far, right? Because we didn't have a window before this thing, right? Is 0 initially, right? So now this is the maximum, like, you know, if we only had this string, right? You know, this would be the answer 1, right? You know, she's the max, she's the substring of length 3, right? That has, you know, she's the maximum number of vowels that it has, right? This is the maximum word to generate, right? Okay, so now that we have that, right? We need to expand the left pointer. No, we need to shrink, right? Because now it's a left k, right? Because we're only allowed to have a left k, right? So we uh we shrink it, right, by moving the left pointer forward, right? So since a was a vowel, right? So we need to decrement the count, right, by one, right? So we put one, go to zero now, right? And then now we expand with r again, right? And I would check, right? Is I a vowel? Yes, it is, right? So number of vowels is one. Okay. So now we check. We have a subarray, which is a substring of length 3, right? We check it against our current one. It does not bigger, so we keep it the same. Right. And that's why we move forward, right? With left forward, we shrink again because because we'll be adding stuff to our window again, right? So we need to. That's how we maintain the length of k, guys, right? And then we do the same thing. We increment r, right? So now r is this thing of value. Yes, it is. We increment the count, right? 2, right? So we like 2. But this subarray, right? Is it greater than the current max that we have, right? Yes, it is greater than the max. So because we found a substring of length 3 that has 2 vowels in there, right? So it's greater than the first one we saw, which only had 1 vowel, right? So that's kind of what we do here. We update that to a 2, and then what we're going to do is to shrink again, right, to maintain the length. Okay. So now we shrink, right? It's not a vowel, so we don't have to decrement this. We're fine. And then we incremented r again, right? That cool. So it's a vowel. We increment the number of vowels that particular window. We check, is it greater than the max? Yes, it is. We're good. And then we decrement. We shrink the window again, right? We shrink since the left pointer was pointing to a vowel, guys, right? Since it was pointing to a vowel, we need to decrement the amount of vowels that's in the window because we're not accounting for that vowel anymore, right? Which is what I'm trying to tell you guys, right? Since we're not accounting for it anymore, we decrement the count, put that to a 2, and then we're in good shape. And then we go ahead and increment it again. So this is how we maintain the count of all the number of vowels that we have in our window, right? We by uh, adding and subtracting, right? So we always know at whatever given time, right, how many vowels we have in a window. Right? I can tell you this guarantee, right? So we do the same thing, it's not a vowel, we're good, we shrink. Now accounting for this I anymore becomes a 1, right? And then this one's a R. All right, we increment, right? So it is a vowel, the increments again, right? Not bigger, so it's fine. Then we shrink, then we go this, then so on and so forth, right? So this is how simple it is, right? So I think it'll make a lot more sense as well once we go through the code. So what we're gonna do is gonna be a left pointer is gonna get initialized, and we're also gonna have the number of vowels, right? Number of vowels. There you go, 0, and the max so far, right? The maximum is 0 as well, right? So we're gonna pretty much have the right pointer, right? Go to 0, right? Is less than the as that length, right? Right plus plus. Okay. So now if that particular character, right? So let's go to char right. Char is helping us with expanding, right? So whatever character is pointing at. So if let's quickly write that function if is val, that'll pass it this param, right? And then return, right? Any of those conditions are true. A A E. Okay. Let's go. So A E I O U, right? So it's just like that. Yeah. After that, what we do is gonna be if it's a vowel, right? Whatever character that the right's pointing at. It's a vowel. So make sure I typed it right. If it's a vowel, right, we're gonna increment the number of vowels that we have in our window. Okay. And after that, if we get a particular good window, right? Window, right? And If it's greater equal to k, right? So we know that we have a good window. Then we're gonna check it. We're gonna update our max if it's greater, right? Max or right the number of vowels that I have for that particular thing, right? Window. Okay. So after that, we know that we need to increment to the left regardless because we need to shrink. But before we do that, what we're gonna do is to capture whatever, right? Pretty much copy that same code, but there's a key distinction to it. So we're gonna do try char left, whatever the left one is pointing at. If char left happens to be a vowel, then we decrement the count, right? Because we're not accounting for that anymore. And just like that, after that, man, we just go ahead and return the maximum, right? Which will contain the maximum that. Okay. I++. Okay. Looks good to me. All right, let's press submit. See if we pass all the test cases. Awesome, guys. We're able to pass all the test cases, guys. If you guys found value, you guys understood the thought process, let me know in the comment section. If you guys are new here, subscribe because we'll be doing a lot of other videos just like this one. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.